Hi everyone, Julian the drummer, Bristol record collector here with a video about the best blues records, the most collectible ones and some of the most essential ones that you should have if you're a blues fan. What I've done here is I've split this into two parts. So we're going to start off with American blues, and then the second video will be about British blues and how they've been influenced by those from America, and all the essential artists and the different styles of blues recordings, all dating from acoustic, guitar based blues from the Mississippi Delta, through the big band blues, the blues shouters, through to electric blues and R&B. And we'll be looking at some of the ways that those artists have influenced the music of today. So we'll begin with an artist who is considered by many to be one of the most important blues artists of all, and I'm sure you've all have heard of him, and this is Robert Johnson, and this album is aptly titled King of the Delta Blues Singers, and this is the more well-known pressing of this album. It came out in 1966 in the UK. I think there was an earlier pressing on Philips in the early 60s. This one came out on Columbia, CBS in the UK. And I think the earlier ones were when Philips had the license to US Columbia product in the UK. But this record really did influence a lot of people, a lot of budding blues guitarists. Eric Clapton is the probably the most famous one who comes to mind, who cites Robert Johnson as a major influence. These were recordings made in the mid-1930s. It's got the dates on the back: 1936, 1937. This one I've got here is a mid-70s one on US Columbia, which you should still be able to find. It's not all that difficult to trace. And it's got just some of the most incredibly authentic blues guitar and singing that you're likely to hear. It really does come from the soul. Robert Johnson's vocal is plaintive. His guitar playing is just absolutely phenomenal. He combines the sort of standard blues chords with some incredible slide playing as well. And it's incredible when you listen to it how much he manages to get into one song and how deeply he feels it as well. Some of the tracks on here have become blues standards over the years. Crossroads Blues, which of course Eric Clapton popularised with Cream. Terraplane Blues, Come On In My Kitchen. Walking Blues. Rambling on My Mind, which again Clapton did with John Mayall. Travelling Riverside Blues, Milk Cows, Calf Blues, Hellhound on My Trail, to name but a few. But they're all on here, quick sort of 2 to 3 minute tracks. Probably there were other recordings by artists before Robert Johnson, the likes of Charlie Patton, Bukka White, Sleepy John Estes, those sort of people. But none of them really, they were all great, but none of them really had the authentic, down-to-earth feel of Robert Johnson. His life story, of course, has been told many times, one of the legends of American folklore, as he died in his 30s. Which adds to the mystique really of it all. But if you're looking for authentic blues guitar and singing, then you cannot go wrong with Robert Johnson, King of the Delta Blues Singers. Moving on to a different style of blues, this is the sort of big band blues, blues shouters, the singers were sometimes known as. And they didn't come much better than this guy, Joe Turner. Now Joe Turner made the crossover from blues, R&B into rock and roll. And this album, Boss of the Blues, came out originally I think in the late 1950s. This is a mid-60s reissue on Atlantic. And it's of some of his late 1940s recordings with the Pete Johnson Orchestra. That was his very famous partner who played great boogie woogie piano. Let's have a quick look at this record first of all. Let's say it's on that Atlantic label, the special label. This one came out in 1967. Originally, well, it's got 1964 on the label, which I think another issue came out then, but it's all late 50s recordings. Again, some classic tracks here. Cherry Red, Rollin' Pete, which was a standard for Joe Turner and Pete Johnson. Wee Baby Blues, How Long Blues, Piney Brown Blues. All classics again with a great orchestra on there. Some fantastic piano from Pete Johnson. And of course, Big Joe's great voice. Most people will probably be familiar with his rock and roll material like Shake, Rattle and Roll. With the others, things like Flip Flop Fly, Lipstick, Powder and Paint, all those which were, as I say, crossover tracks into R&B. A little more sedate on this record, but nonetheless great performances. So that's Joe Turner, Boss of the Blues, from the 1950s, and this was a 60s release. Well worth getting hold of. Right, next up we have one of the seminal live blues records from one of the great artists, and this is B.B. King, and it's Live at the Regal. Originally released in 1965, it came out on HMV in the UK. This is an early 80s release, reissue on Ace, and it is, as many people say, a great live blues album recorded at the Regal Club in Chicago. B.B. King made lots of live albums, but this one is regarded generally as the best. Tracks Every Day I Have the Blues, Sweet Little Angel, It's My Own Fault, How Blue Can You Get, You Upset Me Baby, Worry Worry, Woke Up This Morning. Just a few of the tracks that are on here. This is a fantastic record. It's been issued several times. This is on the Ace label, and you should still be able to get this one fairly easily. The HMV ones are quite hard to find now. American ones on ABC, you can still find those as well. But this really is a fantastic record, pretty essential, I would say, for blues collectors. So that's B.B. King Live at the Regal. Lots of B.B. King records issued over the years. His early recordings for the Crown label are worth getting hold of as well. They're not too hard to get hold of nowadays, but in the 60s they weren't so easy to get. And in 1968, the Blue Horizon label issued B.B. King's story in I think 3 volumes altogether. I've got 2 of them. This is volume 1, chapter 1, Born in Itabena, Mississippi. Quite a collectible album, this one. So it's on Blue Horizon, and there's the classic Blue Horizon label. This is a lovely condition one as well. and it's got some of BB King's great early tracks on here, which include You Upset Me, Eyesight to the Blind, Troubles, 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 Sneaking Around, 3 O'Clock Blues, Please Love Me, Let Me Love You, The Worst Thing in My Life. Just a few of them that are on here. Quite hard to get hold of this one on a Blue Horizon original, but the tracks are now available on other albums that have been put out over the years. But this is a nice one to get, the BB King Story. And if you get all the 3 volumes, then it's a nice set to have. Right, next is, I suppose, the giant of the Chicago blues. And he was one of the people who was originally born in the Deep South, in Mississippi. And a lot of them decided in the 1940s to travel north to get work. And many of them settled in Chicago, where the famous Chess label was based. Len and Phil Chess set that up to distribute records by a lot of the artists there in Chicago. They were nightclub owners, so I guess what happened is a lot of them had dates at their clubs and then they decided to record them. And the artist in particular that I'm referring to, who probably most people would have heard of, is Muddy Waters. And his original output in the UK was released on London. There wasn't much of it before Pi Records took over the distribution of Chess Records. And you're probably familiar with the Pi International R&B series. And so they issued a lot of Muddy Waters records along with those of Howlin' Wolf and Sonny Boy Williamson, Chuck Berry, in fact. But I suppose the seminal album that Muddy Waters recorded in the early 60s was Muddy Waters at Newport, which I have on a CD, but I've not come across one on vinyl recently. It is available, but I think it's come out in a different with a different cover and so on over the years. So in terms of collections, this is as good as any to get. The Muddy Waters Chess Blues Masters. It's a double album. Came out in the early 70s. And the good thing about this is it's got all the recording information on there. Dates, players, and release dates. It's a really good collection. Double album. I'm Ready, I Just Want to Make Love to You, She Moves Me, Hoochie Coochie Man, Long Distance Call, Rolling Stone, where of course the Rolling Stones took their name. Still a Fool, You Can't Lose What You Ain't Never Had, I Can't Be Satisfied, Rolling Tumbling, Same Thing, Baby Please Don't Go, Got My Mojo Working, all the classics here which were covered by lots of British bands at the time as well. And this is on the mid-70s Chess label, the orange one. And like I say, you can't really go wrong with something like this because it's got all the classics on there. Some that he recorded with his famous band, which was obviously Little Walter on harmonica, Willie Dixon bass, Jimmy Rogers guitar, Fred Bellow drums, Otis Spann piano. They actually carried on recording with him for quite a few years, and then as the 60s drew on, it changed. One or two people sadly passed on. Muddy himself kept going until the early 80s, and he re-recorded a lot of these songs with Johnny Winter on his Blue Sky label, which are great albums to get hold of. But like I say, Muddy Waters, Chess Blues Masters, well worth getting if you're just starting collecting Muddy Waters. Now, another great blues artist, influenced on many groups in the 60s, who covered a lot of his songs, was John Lee Hooker. And he made recordings for lots and lots of different labels. This is one I picked up. It was issued in 1963 while he was with the VJ label in Chicago. This was issued on Stateside in the UK, and it's I Want to Shout the Blues. And around about the time that he had his hits with Boom Boom and Dimples, this album is a good one. It includes I'm Leaving, Love is a Burning Thing, the title track, I Want to Shout, Half a Stranger, My Grinding Mill, Bottle Up and Go, One Way Ticket. Fantastic, sparse backing, just guitar, bass and drums, all trying to follow John Lee as he plays his 13, 14 bar blues. But it all adds to the authenticity of it, really. And it makes a really enjoyable album without it becoming too sort of over the top and mixed up, I suppose, which some of John Lee Hooker's records did tend to do. There's the nice green and silver Stateside label. It's a really nice copy of this as well. So, yeah. Different sound from the other Chicago blues artists. No harmonica as such in John Lee Hooker records, but just some really good fast shuffling guitar. So that's John Lee Hooker, I Want to Shout the Blues, 1963. Now, another of the great Chicago blues artists, similar to the Muddy Waters vein, was Howlin' Wolf. Chester Burnett came again from the Deep South, went north to Chicago and recorded for Chess. Lots of Pie International R&B albums available. This is a slightly later one, came out in the mid-60s, and it's Moaning in the Moonlight, and it's on Pie's mid-price Marble Arch label. We've still got some good detailed sleeve notes on the back as well, about Howlin' Wolf and how he made his records. This is a great one to get if you're just starting with Howlin' Wolf. Moaning at Midnight, How Many More Years, Smokestack Lightning, the classic one which many bands recorded, Baby How Long, No Place to Go, Evil, I'm Leaving You, Moaning for My Baby, I Asked for Water, She Gave Me Gasoline, and Somebody in My Home. Yeah, just classic Howlin' Wolf here with that amazing voice, unique harmonica style, Hubert Sumlin's great lead guitars, and not too difficult to find this one. So again, if you're starting with Howlin' Wolf, then Moaning in the Moonlight is one to try and get hold of. Now, another important artist, I think, and someone who covered a wide range of styles, but who was very much a blues singer, certainly in his early years, was Ray Charles. Now, this album came out in 1960 while he was still with Atlantic, and it's called Genius. The Genius Sings the Blues. Over here it's on the rather fantastic London Atlantic Jazz label, and this is, I suppose, similar to the Joe Turner one in that it's a big band providing the backing, but Ray Charles was just fantastic on this one. The tracks Early in the Morning, Hard Times, Midnight Hour, The Right Time, That's been recorded by a few people over the years. Feeling Sad, Ray's Blues, I'm Moving On, I Believe to My Soul. I think the Animals did a great version of that. Eric Burdon was a great Ray Charles fan, as was Joe Cocker. Nobody Cares, Mr. Charles Blues, Someday Baby, I Wonder Who. Vocal backing by the Raelettes, of course. And his Ray Charles piano on this album is fantastic as well. And it really gets deep down into the songs, really feels the blues. So well recommended, this one. Ray Charles, The Genius Sings the Blues, 1960. Someone who I meant to include in the video I did on rock and roll records, and I left him out, and I suppose he can really be included in this section on blues as well, because a lot of the records he did, particularly his early stuff, were basically blues, R&B, and that is the great Fats Domino. And you can't really go wrong with Million Sellers by Fats. There's volumes 1 and 2. This is volume 1, which I've got here. And this came out in the early 60s on EMI Liberty label, or from his Imperial recordings that he made in the 50s. And as you might expect, this has got lots and lots of hits on it. The Fat Man, Going Home, Go to the River, Please Don't Leave Me, All by Myself, Ain't That a Shame, Blueberry Hill, Bo Weevil, Blue Monday, Be My Guest, I Want to Walk You Home. It's just absolutely swamped with great songs, as is Volume 2, which came out around about 68, I think. Just classic Fats Domino, really. Pounding piano, great New Orleans backing from the usual session players who played on all of those records. And this is an album well worth getting hold of. Million Sellers by Fats, volumes 1 and 2. Moving on, or staying in the, or going back rather to the Chicago blues, and looking now at some of the bands who took on the Muddy Waters style and made it their own. And one of the best early examples of this was the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and this is their classic first album, self-titled, came out in 1965 on Elektra. I think the first few copies of this, like this one, were imports. You got that nice stiff cardboard cover, and then a lovely sort of mustard coloured Elektra label. This album I cannot recommend highly enough. If you like electric blues, then this is just fantastic. It's got feel, it's got drive, it's got everything you could possibly want, and every song will get you on this. Every track's a gem. Born in Chicago, Shake Your Money Maker, Blues with a Feeling, Thank You Mr. Pooh Bah, I Got My Mojo Working, Mellow Down Easy, Screaming, Our Love Is Drifting, Mystery Train, Last Night, and Look Over Yonder's Wall. This is the classic Paul Butterfield Blues Band lineup, with Mike Bloomfield lead guitar, Elvin Bishop rhythm guitar, Jerome Arnold bass, Sam Leon drums, and Mark Naftalin organ, and Paul Butterfield vocals and harmonica. Paul Butterfield was a fantastic harmonica player. He got all his influence from Little Walter, I guess, but then improved it, I suppose, in a lot of respects. Had a incredible sound, and was just able to blow so many notes whilst at the same time still feeling the song. Um, uh, the classic Butterfield Blues Band made this album and the follow-up East West, which was a little bit more, I suppose it had psychedelic elements in it, and soul elements. And then he moved on to change the lineup a little bit and brought some brass players in and made it more of a big band blues thing. But all his records are really interesting and have a lot of feel to them, and certainly don't leave you standing. That you're sort of taken with them. You get a lot of great blues with Paul Butterfield and his various bands, but this is a great one to start with, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Electra 1965. Now another lesser known blues artist coming up next, and he's one of the group of them who decided to come to Europe and ply their trade, and many of them recorded records in the UK with some of the best artists from over here. And one of these was a guy called Eddie Boyd, and he was a pianist. He was from Clarksdale, Mississippi, and in 1967 he came to Britain and recorded this album, Eddie Boyd and his blues band, featuring Peter Green. Now it's actually, as you can imagine, if Peter Green's on it, who was Peter Green with at the time? John Mayall's Blues Breakers, and so it is they who provide most of the backing on here, as well as Peter Green on guitar. We have John McVie on bass, Ainsley Dunbar drums, John Mayall himself on harmonica, and then a few guests. Tony McPhee plays guitar on a couple of tracks, and then a couple of brass players make some appearances as well. This came out on Decca, and it was produced by Mike Vernon, who did all John Mayall's productions at the time. There's the nice old red Decca mono label. This is a lovely copy as well that I picked up quite a few years ago now. It's a highly collectible album. It's got some great stuff on it. Sort of barrel house tinged blues, I guess. Too Bad, another version of Dust My Broom and Key to the Highway, Steakhouse Rock, Ain't Doing Too Bad, Blue Coat Man, which is probably a familiar tune, Roll 'em Back, Pine Tops Boogie Woogie, Nighttime is the Right Time Again. A really nice album, this. Just a quartet with a piano. And Peter Green's playing is great, quite understated, but recorded at a time when he was definitely at his best. So it's, I don't know the availability of this one now, certainly on CD I would imagine. Vinyl probably hard to come by, this one certainly would be, without paying a hefty price for it. But that's Eddie Boyd and his blues band with Peter Green. Eddie Boyd did make another album over here on Blue Horizon with Fleetwood Mac, so Peter Green again is on that one, and again that's quite a difficult one to find. Right, finally in this American blues section, a little bit more, a few years further forward, and this band I think were really authentic for the first few years of their existence anyway, and this is the Fabulous Thunderbirds. They came from Texas, and they recorded several albums over the years, but the first three I would say are pretty much in the straightforward R&B vein. This is the second one. This was issued in 1980. It's called What's the Word. Guitar, bass, drums, harmonica and vocals. But it's got a really authentic sound on this. Quite deliberately rough, I guess, in parts. Jimmy Vaughan was the guitarist. He gets some great sounds on this. Really authentic Texas guitar. Kim Wilson, fantastic vocalist and harmonica player. And the rhythm section on this, Keith Ferguson was on bass. Mick Buck is on drums on some of the tracks, and then it looks like he left the band halfway through, and Fran Christina took over on drums. This is his really great album, really enjoyable. Running Shoes, You Ain't Nothing But Fine, which is an old sort of Cajun tune, which they've rocked up here. Low Down Woman, Sugar Coated Love, The Crawl, which was issued as a single. Jumpin' Bad, great guitar instrumental with harmonica. Learn to Treat Me Right, that's enough of that stuff. Just a few of the tracks on here. This is a great album, really is. It came out in the UK 1980 on Chrysalis. Here we go. Certainly worth trying to find this one if you're into American blues, Texas R&B. Now that's Fabulous Thunderbirds, What's the Word, 1980. So there we are. That's some American blues albums, ones which I've just pulled out, which I think are pretty essential listening. Obviously, if you've got any others that you'd like to mention, do please let me know in the comments and let me know what you think. Please also subscribe if you like what you've seen. Give me a like as well, and I'll be back in with part 2, which will be British blues. So until then, I will see you then and bid you goodbye for now. Thanks for watching.